Have you ever had a coincidence that was so perfect, so weird, that it just made you stop and think, what are the odds? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're going to dive into the work of a psychologist who actually took those moments seriously. His name was Carl Jung, and he had a fascinating theory about the science behind these meaningful coincidences.
I mean, think about it for a second. You decide to call a friend you haven't talked to in like 5 years, and your phone starts ringing, and it's them. Or maybe you have this incredibly vivid dream, and then you watch it play out in real life the very next day. Are these just random glitches in reality? Or could they be hints of a much deeper connection between our own minds and the world all around us?
For Jung, this wasn't just some philosophical debate. It was something he experienced firsthand. One of the wildest examples he ever wrote about happened while he was on a train. Just to pass the time, he starts making up a story out of thin air, a really detailed, romantic biography about a completely imaginary man. He's telling this whole elaborate tale to a friend, just totally lost in his own creation.
And the reveal here is just staggering. Jung had never, ever met the man sitting across from them. But after he finishes his fictional story, the stranger, who'd been listening in, tells him that he had just described the secret history of his life. Every detail, every event. Can you imagine that? An absolutely terrifying and profound moment of connection.
And then, just when you think it can't get any weirder, it does. The second Jung realized what he'd done, the entire story just, poof. It vanished from his memory. He couldn't recall a single word of it. It was like the information had been channeled through him for that one specific moment and was then just taken away, leaving him with this event that completely defied any logical explanation.
So moments like this convinced Jung that he couldn't just brush these things off. I mean, he was a psychiatrist exploring the deepest parts of the human mind. He started to see these events not as some kind of supernatural fluke, but as really important data about how our consciousness actually works.
The problem was, conventional science, with its strict focus on cause and effect, just had no room for this stuff. So Jung proposed a whole new framework. He started to believe that our psyche, our inner world of thoughts, dreams, and feelings, isn't always locked into the physical laws of space and time. He argued that there's another kind of connection in the universe, one that isn't about A causing B, but about things being mysteriously linked by their shared meaning.
To really nail this idea down, Jung knew he needed a new word for it, something that could capture the essence of these bizarre, meaningful alignments. And this would go on to become his most famous and probably most controversial idea.
He called it synchronicity. Now, the most important part of this definition is that phrase, acausal connecting principle. Acausal basically means there's no direct chain of cause and effect. Instead, the events are connected by what they mean to the person who sees them. It's like a bridge between your inner state, what you're thinking or feeling, and something that happens out there in the physical world.
Okay, let's make this super clear. A simple coincidence? That's just you and a coworker showing up in the same shirt. It's random chance. It doesn't really mean anything. But a synchronicity? That feels completely different. Dreaming about a friend you haven't seen in a decade, and then they call you the next morning? That has a powerful feeling of connection, right? A link between your inner world and the outer world that pure chance just doesn't seem to cover.
For Jung, his own life was basically a laboratory for this stuff. His personal journals and clinical records are packed with examples that he used to build and refine his theory. So let's open up the files and look at a couple more cases.
All right, so while Jung was building his famous stone tower at Bollingen, which was this deeply personal project, kind of a physical representation of his own psyche, he needed a very specific triangular cornerstone. He sent the exact measurements to the quarry.
But when the delivery truck shows up, the stone is totally wrong. Instead of the triangle he ordered, the quarry had accidentally sent this massive, perfect cube. The stonemason was, of course, furious and wanted to send it right back.
But Jung stopped him. For him, this wasn't an error at all. In the language of symbols, a cube often represents wholeness, stability, completion. This mistake was a deeply meaningful message from the universe, telling him that this phase of his inner work was now complete. The outer world had perfectly mirrored his inner state.
But synchronicities weren't always these nice, personal affirmations. Sometimes they felt more like warnings. A really powerful example happened in 1913. Jung was on a trip when he was suddenly hit with this terrifying vision. He saw all of Europe being drowned in a sea of blood. He honestly worried he was going insane.
The vision came back weeks later, just as strong. Then, a few days after that, He had a dream about a deadly cold spreading across the land, killing everything, but also holding the seed of renewal. At the time, he couldn't make sense of it. But then, in August of 1914, World War I broke out. His inner visions had been a symbolic preview of a horrific global catastrophe.
So these are some incredible stories from a pretty brilliant mind, right? But what does any of this mean for us today, living our lives in a world that can feel so random and chaotic?
Well, paying attention to synchronicity can totally change how you see the world. It suggests that we're not just these isolated little beings bouncing around in a meaningless universe. Instead, we might be active players in a hidden web of connections. These strange events can be like signposts on our path. They can offer a little guidance when we feel lost, or confirm we're on the right track, or even warn us when we're heading for trouble. It's almost like learning to read the secret language of the universe.
And that really is the biggest takeaway from Jung's idea. It's an invitation to just be more aware, to look for the patterns and the meaning in your own life. It's a shift in perspective, moving away from seeing life as just a series of random accidents to maybe seeing it as a story that's unfolding with a hidden purpose.
So I'll leave you with this question. What moments of bizarre connection or just perfect timing have you brushed off as just a coincidence? And what might your life start to look like if you began to see them not as random noise, but as part of a conversation?